Hi, this is going to be our Unit 6 Civil War test. Number 1. What was the significance of the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter on April 12, 1861? A. It caused the Confederacy to have a naval advantage over the Union. B. It guaranteed that Lincoln would be elected president. C. It influenced Lincoln to propose a peace agreement to avoid war. D. It started the Civil War and caused Lincoln to call for troops. Number 2. What was Abraham Lincoln trying to express when he said, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." A. The Southern states should be allowed to succeed. B. The preservation of the Union was the most important priority. C. Slavery was immoral and should be abolished immediately. D. The slavery issue could only be solved by war. Number 3. Why did slavery expand in the South rather than in the North before the Civil War? A. There was a greater need for slaves in the South due to their manufacturing economy. B. Racist Southerners refused to do work themselves. C. Geographic conditions in the South encouraged the development of large plantations. D. The Constitution contained a clause that outlawed slavery in the North. Number 4. In their plans for Reconstruction, what did both President Abraham Lincoln and President Andrew Johnson seek to accomplish? A. Punish the South for starting the Civil War. B. Force the Southern states to pay debts to the federal government. C. Allow the Southern states to re-enter the nation as quickly as possible. D. Establish the Republican Party as the only political party in the South. Number 5. What do the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States all have in common? A. Civil rights. B. Checks and balances. C. Rapid economic change. D. Government organization. Number 6. Which newspaper headline would have appeared during the Reconstruction? A. Black codes end. B. Former slaves made citizens. C. Emancipation Proclamation issued. D. Supreme Court issues Dred Scott decision. Number 7. What effect did the Emancipation Proclamation have on the slave population? A. It freed all slaves that were willing to volunteer for the Union Army. B. It freed all of the slaves in both the North and the South. C. It only freed slaves in the North, which included the border states. D. It did not free slaves since the Union had no power over the Confederacy. Number 8. What did the Ku Klux Klan and Black Codes have in common? A. They encouraged African Americans to vote. B. They were added to the Constitution during Reconstruction. C. They denied civil rights to African Americans. D. They banned segregation in public facilities. Number 9. How was sharecropping similar to slavery? Sorry. A. Both systems were created to provide freedom to African Americans. B. Both systems left African Americans poor and uneducated. C. Both systems put workers under contract for an established period of time. D. Both systems developed self-sufficiency through land ownership. Number 10. What was the purpose of literacy tests, poll taxes, and the grandfather clause? A. To raise money to rebuild the South after the Civil War. B. To improve the education of United States citizens. C. To deny citizens the right to vote. D. To prevent segregation in public facilities. Number 11. Which statement describes the effects of Jim Crow laws on the people of North Carolina? A. These laws made African Americans feel inferior to whites. B. These laws made it illegal to manufacture, distribute, and sell alcoholic beverages. C. These laws empowered African Americans to participate more in government. D. These laws ended slavery and gave the newly freed men the right to vote. Number 12. What was the immediate cause of secession of Southern states from the Union prior to the start of the Civil War? A. The presidential election of Abraham Lincoln. B. The passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. C. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. D. The Supreme Court decision in the Dred Scott case. Number 13. Which change occurred in Southern agriculture in the years following the Civil War? A. Many formerly enslaved persons became sharecroppers. B. Subsistence farming became illegal. C. Cotton production ended. D. Most small farms were combined to form large plantations. Number 14. What was the significance of Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin? A. It influenced Northerners to enforce the fugitive slave law. B. It influenced the Supreme Court to free Dred Scott. C. It influenced more individuals to join the abolition movement. D. It influenced individuals to support popular sovereignty. Number 15. What was the significance of the Emancipation Proclamation? A. It allowed African Americans to join the Union Army. B. It caused the Confederacy to surrender. C. It influenced the South to invent new technology for farming. D. It granted African Americans the right to vote. Number 16. Why was the Battle of Vicksburg considered to be the turning point of the Civil War? A. It allowed the Confederacy to move soldiers and supplies more effectively. B. It split the Confederacy and allowed the Union to gain control of the Mississippi River. C. It provided an escape route for slaves to move into Western territory. D. It would prove to be the Confederates' last major attack on the North. I'm going to read the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here. but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, November 19th, 1863. What was the significance of the Gettysburg Address? A. It provided encouragement to Union soldiers and a greater purpose to win the war. B. It influenced the Union to abandon the Anaconda Plan. C. It forced the Confederacy to free slaves and withdraw troops from the Union. D. It forced Congress to pass a petition that will punish the Confederacy for succeeding. Plessy versus Ferguson. I'm going to read a passage. The object of the amendment was undoubtedly to enforce the absolute equality of the two races before the law, but in the nature of things it could not have been intended to abolish distinctions based upon color or to enforce social, as distinguished from political, equality or commingling of the two races upon terms unsatisfactory to either. Laws permitting or even requiring their separation in places where they are liable to be brought into contact do not necessarily imply the inferiority of either race to the other, and have been generally, if not universally, recognized as within the competency of the state legislators in the exercise of their police power. We consider the underlying fallacy of the plaintiff's argument to consist in the assumption that the enforced separation of the two races stamps the colored race with the badge of inferiority. If this be so, it is not by reason of anything found in the act, but solely because the colored race chooses to put that construction upon it. Henry B. Brown, Plessy versus Ferguson, ruling in 1896. According to Justice Brown, what was the Supreme Court's position on the segregation in Plessy versus Ferguson? A. Separate public facilities are illegal. B. All public facilities must be separated by gender. C. Public facilities are controlled by local legislators. D. Separate but equal facilities are constitutional. Number 19. What was the outcome of the Supreme Court decision in Dred Scott versus Sanford? A. Dred Scott was freed and slaves were issued full rights as citizens. B. The courts ruled that slaves were not citizens and had no right to sue in a court of law. C. Abolitionists viewed the decision as a victory because slavery was declared an immoral act. D. Dred Scott would be required to use segregated facilities. And number 20. What was the objective of General Sherman as he marched through the South? A. To free all of the slaves in the rebel states. B. To burn property, loot homes, and tear up railroads. C. To push the Confederate Army towards Antietam. D. To ruin the North's Anaconda Plan. That is the end of your test. Good luck.